Well, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? I hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, and yes, we are still doing this. Yes, the algorithm is still being incredibly friendly to Helldivers videos, so don't go judging me. I'm for sale just like everybody else. Before we get started, I do have a bit of an announcement to make, or more so, kind of an announcement, but also sort of like a request from you, my audience. Sadly, there's no easy way to break this to you. I know it's gonna come as a shock. Sit down for a second, just take a deep breath. But believe it or not, I don't know everything. Well, hold up, don't get an aneurysm now, okay? The truth is that there are a lot of survival challenges I would like to make, but I can't because I just don't know enough about the worlds that I would like to make survival challenges of. So, for the past couple of months, I have been sending emails and messages on Discord and the Gram and Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and all these other different social media accounts, some of which I made social media accounts specifically to send messages because I did not have any of this shit before, for the sole purpose of contacting individual YouTubers who have particular expertise in certain universes that I myself don't know. I have sent so many messages in the past couple of months. I've sent them to YouTubers who specialize in Halo, Warframe, Warhammer 40k, Elden Ring, really just any From Software title. Dead Space, Lord of the Rings, Destiny, you name it. I have been sending messages like crazy, trying to get some collaboration videos going so I can bring you guys all kinds of stuff of all kinds of different universes. And out of all those messages I sent, it amounted to one collaboration video. Just one. So I think it's pretty safe to say it's not exactly working out the way I would like. So I've decided to call upon you, the people, to assist me in my endeavor. Go out into the void, into the YouTube sphere, and just start commenting like crazy on all your favorite YouTubers' videos, just letting them know this motherfucker wants to collaborate and he is looking for people to do so, and it could be a lot of fun, and to get in contact with me if they are interested, because chances are I've already sent them messages and they haven't replied back. And you might be asking yourself, well, Rouga, what the fuck are you doing? You're asking a bunch of randos to just go out and start spamming the comment section of a bunch of YouTubers, annoying the fuck out of them? Yes, that is exactly what I'm asking you to do. And for people that have a problem with doing that, let me just tell you, there is not a YouTuber in existence that would not appreciate having 200 fucking messages just pop on all their videos out of nowhere. The algorithm picks up your video and shows it to a ton of people based on a lot of different factors, one of which being the amount of comments the videos get. So by you commenting and flooding their comment section with these types of messages, all you're doing is improving the odds that their video is going to get picked up by the algorithm and shown to more people anyway. So this is good for basically everybody, whether it amounts to something or not. So go out, space monkeys, go. Fly. Let's get this fucking shit started so we can make a bunch of cool videos. And for today's cool video, we're going to be going over what would happen if the Helldivers universe started to invade the Mass Effect universe while they're in the middle of their whole stressful bullshit situation. Let's get started. The location that our challenge is going to take place in today is going to be the Milky Way galaxy, but the Milky Way galaxy as it is in the Mass Effect universe. 25 years before the start of the series, there was this massive war called the First Contact War, and it was basically when Earth and humans for the first time ever ran into Turians, which was an alien from a totally different planet on the other side of the Milky Way. The winner of this war was the humans, and what they got out of this war was basically being introduced to the wider galaxy and all these other races and all the politics and all the bullshit that basically exists outside of Earth. Because humanity was only introduced to the wider galaxy 25 years ago, they're basically considered like a very young, kind of disrespected race. Nobody really likes them or really cares about them, and they're kind of treated as like a pet project to a lot of the older races. But that's not entirely unique to humanity, because none of the fucking races in this universe likes each other. The Turians don't like the Asari, don't like the Krogan, don't like the Solarians, and onward and onward. Everybody fucking hates each other. You play as a character named Shepard, who is a commander on a ship called the Normandy that is a human vessel. One day when you're out doing your whole mission thing, you end up coming into contact with this thing called the Conduit, and it beams a bunch of crazy visions in your head, and you learn of this widespread galactic slaughter that happened 50,000 years ago to this race of beings called the Protheans. This sets you off on a mission where you learn that there's this ancient machine biological race known as the Reapers that come every 50,000 years to wipe out all life in the galaxy and then harvest their bodies and keep them as information, and they just keep doing it. They keep coming back every 50,000 years and doing this. So over the course of the Mass Effect trilogy, it's Shepard's job to basically get all of these different races who fucking hate each other to stop being, you know, assholes, and basically say, guys, get along, because we're about to get slaughtered by this giant race of machine gods. Can you get your shit together? And that's what happens in the game. What's going to happen in our challenge is a little bit different. After Shepard actually sees that conduit and gets all those visions beamed into his head and finds out about all the Reaper bullshit, what were to happen if, say, Super Earth shows up and decides to take over the whole fucking galaxy? Yeah, all the way over in a totally different universe and a totally different version of Earth. Super Earth is fucking around with a bunch of Illuminate technology and decides to start opening portals to all sorts of different universes, and one of those universes that opens is the Mass Effect Milky Way galaxy. They then decide to go in there, start driving through, looking at all these planets with all these people on it and being like, what the fuck? Where's all the democracy at? And then decide to start throwing that shit around like candy fucking corn on Halloween. And in this video today, we're going to discuss a couple of different situations that may occur if these two opposing forces come to blows. So, yeah. Let's do that. Racism and Super Earth. This is one that a lot of people told me to cover in my last Star Wars Helldiver video. I didn't touch on it because I didn't think it was necessary, but apparently it is. So here we go. There were a lot of comments in that video saying that it was weird that I didn't bring up the fact that Super Earth is really, really racist, because that's going to affect how they interact with the citizens of the new galaxy that they go into. My argument is that there's no evidence whatsoever that Super Earth is racist. Everybody who exists on Earth are human. They've started wars with 3 different species. None of those wars were started due to race. They started a war with cyborgs, who are actually just humans who used to be on Super Earth and betrayed them and fled the planet. They started a war with Terminids because Terminid blood works the same way as oil, and they wanted that so they can have renewable energy. And they started a war with the Illuminates because they wanted the Illuminates technology. None of this has anything to do with race. They don't have any racially motivated propaganda. Their propaganda for going to war with the automatons is because the automatons are socialist. Super Earth's superiority complex is not race related. It's ideology related. If you believe in democracy and support Super Earth and follow the ideology of Super Earth, you're fine. There's no reason to think that they would go to war with you simply because you're a different race. I was told by quite a few people that there's a law on the books in Super Earth that basically says that it is an act of treason to even talk to someone of another species outside of Super Earth. And pretty much everyone I talked to was in agreement that this is a clear-cut example showing that Super Earth is actually super xenophobic and super racist. But I don't actually agree with that, because I think they're missing a lot of context. I mean, think about what Super Earth is doing. It's lying to all of its citizens about why it's going to war with all these factions and painting itself as the sort of righteous hero and all these other factions as evil and corrupt in some way. The whole reason why Super Earth is on board with fighting the automatons is because they believe that they're socialists that want to kill their children. What would happen if a Helldiver were actually to start a conversation with an automaton and realize, wait, they're not socialist? They don't want to kill our children? They're actually kind of normal people? That would make the Helldiver question the war that he's fighting. Super Earth would start to lose its grasp and its unwavering loyalty over its soldiers. While this law of not allowing people from Super Earth to talk to any other species is super, super fucked up, the reasoning for it existing is not necessarily tied into racism, but more so a necessity to help Super Earth stay in power. In order to prove that Super Earth and all of the people within Super Earth are actually xenophobic or racist, you would have to point to some situation somewhere that happened in the story where they end up slaughtering a whole group of people or doing something terrible to a group of people solely due to the fact that they're a different race or not from Super Earth. But that's not the case. Every single horrible act that Super Earth does towards another group is because they want something or want to extend their power. I don't see any evidence throughout all of the Helldivers universe that Super Earth would just kill them all anyway simply because they're not from Super Earth or because they're an alien species. So if they go to the Star Wars universe or the Mass Effect universe, they're going to go to war with the other species for sure, but if any of those species decide to surrender and be like, no, we're totally going to be under you, that's cool, we're done. I don't see any reason why Super Earth would reject that. Because in their own universe, none of the other species has even attempted to surrender or serve them in any way. Any species that Super Earth comes into contact with who is all in on this whole Super Earth shit and is just like, oh yeah, that sounds rad, let's fucking do that shit. Super Earth's not just gonna kill them anyway because they're not human. It's not the way their philosophy works. Now, having said that, when Super Earth comes into the Mass Effect universe, are they going to start slaughtering all the other races? Yes, because none of these races are going to abandon all of their beliefs to suddenly follow Super Earth. But it's important to note that they will also be slaughtering the humans in the Mass Effect universe as well, because humans will also not be following Super Earth. The Star Wars video worked a little bit differently because I actually believe that there were many people who would follow Super Earth because they would see them as a better alternative to the Empire. But in the Mass Effect universe, there really isn't some greater authoritarian force that's like oppressing all the people. So when Super Earth comes in, they're not going to seem like a savior, they're just going to seem like the oppressors. Everyone's going to have to band together to fight against Super Earth. Pretty much exactly how they had to all band together to fight the Reapers. Alright, so next up we gotta talk about the technology of both universes. And, oh, fuck. This is gonna be such a long section. Okay, there's so much to go over. On the surface, the Mass Effect universe seems like its technology is so unbelievably advanced that very few other sci-fi universes should even be able to face them on par. But it's okay, because I get to do one of my favorite things. Shit on scalers! So on the surface, the Mass Effect universe seems like it is a very broken-ass fucking universe in terms of just how advanced its technology is. And many scalers truly believe this wholeheartedly, but that is because they are fucking lying to themselves. They do what many scalers do, which essentially, they go in and they read the code. Well, no, they don't read the codexes. For the ones that do read the codexes, they read the codexes, and then they take the information that they want to take that makes their universe really awesome, and they completely cast out anything that might actually show that that universe is kind of weak and not really all that powerful. Let me give you an example. In the Mass Effect universe, there's this technology called the mass relays. And what the mass relays do is it lowers the mass of an object to nearly non-existent so that it can then fling that object at light speed or even above light speed without creating enough force to destroy not only the object, but anything that the object flies near. Because the formula for force is acceleration times mass. So if you have acceleration that's above light speed, obviously, you're going to create an insane amount of force unless your mass is insanely fucking low. They do this for their ships, but they also have little mini versions of these in their guns. You see, the guns in Mass Effect don't actually fire bullets. What it really has is a massive block of metal that is placed in the magazine. And then when you fire a shot, it actually chips off a little piece of this metal that's about the size of a grain of sand and passes it through a little mini mass relay, which brings that little grain of metal to the speed of about 1% the speed of light. Many people who defend the Mass Effect universe as being like the strongest shit ever will say, well, if you move even a little grain of sand to the speed of light, you're literally creating enough force to split the planet in half. And while that's wrong for many reasons, it is correct that it creates an insane level of force. But they're ignoring the part that the mass relay lowers mass so that amount of force isn't created. This is stated in the Codex. The Codex also states that these guns are limited by recoil. So yes, the guns do increase the speeds to insane degrees, but it decreases the mass because if it creates too much force, the recoil is going to be too much and it's going to harm the person firing the gun. So the people who constantly argue that these guns are shooting so goddamn powerful, but then they completely ignore things like the fact that Ashley Williams, a 120-pound woman, is capable of shooting these guns without any issues. The argument that people make that Mass Effect guns are so far beyond any normal gun that you could possibly have outside of Mass Effect weaponry is not true. The fact that the game says it's limited by recoil shows this clearly. Now, people think that the guns in Mass Effect are so goddamn powerful because in the Codex, it says that combustion weapons were not effective against modern day Mass Effect armor and shielding. They're outdated and overall just worthless in any gunfight in the Mass Effect universe. So people automatically make the assumption that any combustion weapon that is used in any fictional world anywhere outside of Mass Effect isn't going to do anything to the Mass Effect armor because Mass Effect combustion weapons don't work against it. But this doesn't make any logical sense. I'm not going to argue that a lot of combustion weapons wouldn't be effective against Mass Effect armor. I think most normal guns probably wouldn't. But like, let's say a Tyrannosaurus round. You ever seen a Tyrannosaurus round? If I can find it online, I'll put it on the screen. Basically, it's a round that's bigger than an elephant round. An elephant round is, you guessed it, used to hunt elephants. It shoots with an insane level of force and it takes about 3 grown men to shoot it together without knocking them down. Are you seriously gonna stand there and tell me that a pistol in Mass Effect can produce enough force to go through a shielding and armor, but not a Tyrannosaurus round? When the game tells you that recoil is a factor? If a pistol in Mass Effect had that much force, you'd snap your fucking wrists. Anybody would. It wouldn't be possible to shoot. You cannot tell me that combustion guns don't work against the armor, period, at all, and in the same breath tell me that recoil actually matters when it comes to Mass Effect guns. I think you can definitely argue that a lot of combustion weapons in the Mass Effect universe became worthless against Mass Effect armor and shielding. However, if you go over to the Helldivers universe, who has guns that are considerably more powerful than guns that exist in our real world. Guns like the autocannon and the anti-material rifle are considerably stronger than normal guns. Way fucking stronger. The autocannon cannot be shot like a normal gun. You have to put it on your shoulder because the recoil is so powerful. It fires a bullet that can go through several layers of armored plating and then explodes when it fucking hits. You're not gonna tell me that that gun is not as powerful as a pistol in Mass Effect. I mean, just think back for a second to some scenes in Mass Effect. There are multiple scenes where characters get shot in the stomach by Mass Effect guns, whether it be pistols, rifles, whatever, and they live. If these guns were as powerful as people claim them to be, they'd go through the shielding and the armor. When they hit the stomach, they're putting a fucking hole in you the size of a car door. There's no way in hell that you could say that these weapons are more powerful. No humanoid being in the Mass Effect universe, even the strongest ones like the Cronin, are going to survive having a shot from the autocannon enter their stomach. And this is kind of the case across the board for all of Mass Effect's technology. It sounds really good and really advanced and really powerful, and then if you think about it for like 5 seconds, you realize, well, actually, it's not all that advanced, it's not all that powerful. Let's look at the mass relays when it comes to their ships, right? No ship in the Mass Effect universe can travel from cluster to cluster going massively faster than light. They have to use a mass relay. When you go over to Helldivers, their ships can travel massively faster than light without any issues. They don't need a mass relay to travel all around the galaxy like Mass Effect does. And remember, the mass relay's purpose is to decrease the weight of the object being sent so you don't damage the object itself and the things around it. This shows pretty fucking clearly that the ships in Mass Effect are less durable than the ships in Helldivers because they're not capable of traveling massively faster than light without being completely ripped apart by the force of traveling that fast. This is something that the Helldivers ships are capable of doing casually. In terms of weapons and spacecrafts, Helldivers has way superior technology when compared to Mass Effect. Like, it's not even fucking close. Now, there are things that Mass Effect has that's better than Helldivers. It's not so one-sided. Shielding is a really good example of this. The Mass Effect series has way better shielding than anything the Helldivers have. Helldivers have 2 shields. They have one big ass fucking battery pack they put on their back that creates a little personal shield. It's super encumbersome. It means they can't hold as many weapons. It arguably breaks a whole lot easier than the Mass Effect shield, and it takes a lot longer to come back. They also have a much bigger bubble type shield that can go around a bunch of soldiers at the same time, and it has the added benefit that you can shoot out of it, but nobody can shoot in it, which is something that none of the Mass Effect shields have. However, it has to stay in one spot, and when the shield breaks, it's done and it doesn't come back. If you go over to the Mass Effect side, they have all different kinds of shields. They have regular shielding, they have biotic shielding, and the shielding is just clearly more advanced. It takes more hits, it comes back faster. Biotics themselves, which we'll get to in a second, can actually create giant force fields much like that bubble shield that the Helldivers have. While they can't shoot out of the biotic barrier like the Helldivers can, it's a considerably stronger barrier. And if you have multiple biotics, they can all enhance the strength of it to make it basically as strong as they want it to be, as long as you have biotics to do it. And the only limiter is that it takes a lot out of a biotic to hold a shield like that for very long. So basically, the length of time you have the biotic shield is based on fatigue. And unlike the Helldivers big ass shield where it's just one static location, a biotic is a person who is producing the shield so they can walk around with it. And then we get to biotics as a whole. Helldivers just don't have anything even close to what biotics are. Biotics are humans who are amplified with all sorts of science mumbo jumbo bullshit. Don't worry about it, it's not important. But basically it gives them the ability to do all sorts of crazy stuff. They can create Mass Effect fields around themselves to launch themselves forward at insanely fast speeds. They can take away the gravity from an individual person. They can lock them in stasis. They can shoot these biotic energy blasts that are basically like a force push. They can create things that are kind of like black holes, but not really. It's like a singularity that sucks people into it and like flings them around and kills them and then shoots them out, but it's not like a legit black hole, but it's basically a tiny black hole. All in all, biotics and Mass Effects are basically like space wizards. And there's no doubt whatsoever that they're going to be a massive game changer when it comes to going to battle with the Helldivers, because the Helldivers don't have anything even close to that. Basically, in terms of technology, when it comes to Mass Effect versus Helldivers, you have kind of like what I said before, it's sort of like a bunch of wizards and rogues versus warriors. All of Helldivers' technology is about just blowing the fuck out of everything they come into contact with. Their guns are massive and insanely overpowered, and they have a ton of different ways to completely obliterate and destroy their opponents. I haven't even really gotten into stratagem, but they got things like the orbital laser, 500 kilogram bomb, napalm strikes. They can drop stationary turrets and mortars to fight for them. They can drop this big ass box that opens up and then shoots mines everywhere. And honestly, just the fact that at each individual Helldiver has their own super destroyer. They can just send them down literally anything they want in the middle of battle, so they can constantly change up their tactics in case something's not working. That's all going to really help the Helldivers out. While on the other side, Mass Effect is going to be helped out by the fact they're just really weird to fight. Like, if you've never seen something like a person get locked into stasis or have all the gravity stripped from their body, and you go into a fight and suddenly that starts happening, and there's literally thousands of people on the other side who can do it, it's going to take the Helldivers a second to actually be able to figure out what the fuck is happening. What is this shit? This is super weird. But on the other hand, they did go to war with the Illuminates, who are basically space wizards themselves, and they know how to do a lot of that crazy shit too. It's not the exact same, but it's a lot of similar stuff. So, you know, actually, they probably have seen a lot of this stuff before. I would actually say technologically wise, it's relatively close, but it still goes to Helldivers because at the end of the day, it's a war, and who's going to win the war is probably the person who can cause the most destruction on the other side, and that's just clearly the Helldivers. Overall, a war between these two would be fascinating because they really do have completely different arsenals. This is not just going to be like one type of gun versus another type of gun. There's legitimate differences here. Next up, we got the Reapers, and I'm not going to lie, Mass Effect did the Reapers real dirty. You see, in Mass Effect 1, when they first introduced the Reapers, they had a very H.P. Lovecraft sort of twist to them. They were introduced as this thing that nobody could possibly understand, these machine gods that were worshipped by the Geth, ancient and unknowable. And then at the end of Mass Effect 1, when Sovereign actually showed up and the entire Citadel fleet all came together to fight against the Geth and Sovereign, he was killed by Joker in the Normandy. One well-placed shot completely destroyed him. Then in Mass Effect 2, they introduced another Reaper, which is like a human Reaper, and I'm not going to put too much credit into this because it wasn't a completed Reaper, but it was killed by Shepard and two of his crewmates on foot with handheld weapons. And then in 3, Shepard killed another Reaper on foot, and this one was not an incomplete Reaper, this was a full-on Reaper, and he killed it with like a satellite laser. So the whole god level presence that they were trying to build in Mass Effect 1 really doesn't go past the first part of Mass Effect 1. Like, it doesn't even hold to the end of Mass Effect 1. In Mass Effect 3, when the Reapers show up on Earth, there are dozens upon dozens invading a single city and like shooting little lasers through buildings and killing people in small groups at a time. There's no like crazy over-the-top world-shattering levels of power being released by these guys. And when I mentioned this in a previous video, people said, well, Rouga, that's because the Reapers weren't there to wipe out all life, they were there to harvest life, and then once it was harvested, then they were going to wipe out all life. But in Mass Effect 3, they didn't finish the harvesting part, so we didn't actually get to see them destroy a bunch of shit. And my issue with that is that is not an argument of evidence as to why they can do something. That's excuses as to why we don't see them do it. For instance, what if I said in One Piece, Luffy can destroy the whole universe, but we don't see him do that because he doesn't want to kill innocent people? There's no evidence that he's actually capable of doing that. Nobody says that he can do that. I'm just giving an excuse as to why he doesn't, and I'm trying to use that as evidence as to how he can. It doesn't make any sense. There's literally nothing in the Mass Effect universe that says that the Reapers can do the amount of power that people claim they can do. Reapers are not world-destroying entities. They're not all that powerful. If we go over to the Helldivers side, they just built a space station that in a weapons test of one of their cannons, the space station has tons and tons of cannons, by the way, they were able to blow up a moon. That by itself is far beyond anything that exists in the Mass Effect universe. If that space station were to go to the Mass Effect universe, it would instantly be the most powerful weapon that exists there. And it's one space station. And to give a correction to something I said in the Star Wars video, I mentioned that Helldivers only had one space station. I was corrected on this, and they were right. This is not the first space station they have. This is the first space station that they've created that is capable of faster than light travel and can actually go to other systems and help with combat and shit. They have a ton of other space stations that are all capable of the same level of power and ability. My point is that in the Mass Effect universe, the Reapers are the most advanced thing that exists and are considered gods. Nothing else can really stand against it, and it takes a whole lot of effort for them to take out just one Reaper. No ship in the entire universe has ever done any more damage than blowing up like a large building. We're just not shown anything to that degree. But over in Helldivers, this is commonplace. They're considerably more powerful. So if the Helldivers invaded Mass Effect, the Reapers would not be a threat to them. Any one of their trillions, quadrillions, whatever super destroyers that every single Helldiver has can just turn and fire on any Reaper ship and instantly obliterate it without any challenge whatsoever. To me, this is a very clear and obvious indicator that when it comes to in-space battles between multiple ships, there's absolutely no challenge. Mass Effect cannot overcome Helldivers in this regard. So last up in this weird justification parade I got going on, hopefully, before we can actually get to what this video is really about, is indoctrination. So a lot of people on a previous video were confused as to why I didn't bring up indoctrination when I was talking about Helldivers and Mass Effect. They felt that indoctrination is one of the biggest factors, and then that's really going to be the thing that's going to overcome the Helldivers. And simply put, the reason why I didn't bring it up is because I really don't think it's going to be all that much of a factor. Let me explain. So the Reapers have two ways of indoctrinating people. It seems like two different types of indoctrination. There's indoctrination that the Geth do, which is where they skewer people on these big ass spikes and sort of infect them with this kind of digital virus sort of thing. And then they turn into these different creatures called husks, which are basically like super zombies that run after you. Some of them explode, they do all kinds of crazy shit like that, and you have to put them down. Okay, cool. And the second indoctrination comes from the Reapers, and it's just sort of a passive kind of indoctrination, where if you're near any kind of Reaper technology, it sort of has this hum that starts to affect your fucking mind, and it puts ideas and thoughts into you and starts playing on your doubts and fears, and it starts to control you and getting you to change your mind into their way of thinking. So for the first type of indoctrination that the Geth do, I've talked about this before. I'm a pretty avid believer that a zombie apocalypse could never succeed in real life because biting someone to spread your infection is wildly inefficient. And I feel the same way about something like xenomorphs, where they have to lay eggs and the face huggers grab on you, lay eggs in your stomach, and then you get the chest burster. That's like, it's just a very slow and inefficient way to spread your gene, I guess. But the Geth take that inefficiency to a whole new level. Having to take a person, build a fucking skewer tower, then place people on the skewer tower, have them be skewed. I would struggle very hard to come up with a less efficient way to turn people on your side without getting into like parody. This isn't going to happen to the Helldivers. In the Mass Effect series, the vast majority of people they do this to are just civilians who can't defend themselves. They do it to very few soldiers until Mass Effect 3, and even then it's not like all over the place. The Geth have to win a battle against the Helldivers before they would be even capable of doing this and take them alive, which is very unlikely against someone like the Helldivers, who are totally cool with suicide bombing themselves for Super Earth. As for the Reaper form of indoctrination, again, I don't think it's really going to be a factor here. And that's for a couple of reasons. For the entirety of the series, the only people that we see that are really affected by the indoctrination to a noticeable degree is Saren and the Elusive Man. And both of those people are in extremely close proximity to Reaper technology for several years. Saren actually has Reaper technology built into his body, and he can still resist the indoctrination enough to kill himself, so he doesn't serve them anymore. Nobody on Shepard's crew, including Shepard himself, are ever affected by the indoctrination, despite the fact that they're fighting against the Reapers for literally years, because they're not in that close of proximity. And yes, that is correct. Shepard is not affected by the indoctrination. The indoctrination theory was proven to be false when BioWare came out and tried to fix the ending, but didn't really. That new and supposedly improved ending completely proved the indoctrination theory false. So yeah, we have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of characters who are in close proximity with Reapers for several years, and none of them get indoctrinated. So why would you assume that Helldivers would? And you might argue that Helldivers are more inclined to be indoctrinated because you can argue that they are indoctrinated by Super Earth, but I would argue that makes them less likely to be indoctrinated. The way the Reaper indoctrination works is it preys on your fears and weaknesses, and through that alters your perception of how you behave. The Helldivers aren't really shown to have any weaknesses like this. They're shown very clearly to not fear death in any way. They are launched down to the planet and have to fight against hundreds and thousands of fucking aliens by themselves or in small groups of 4, and they have no fear about being outnumbered like that. In fact, it excites them to go down there and die for Super Earth. What fears or weaknesses would the Reapers even be able to prey off of when these people are super willing to just go and kill themselves? It just seems very unlikely that it would work. And even if it did, just like in the Mass Effect universe, it would take like 3 or 4 years to start taking effect in any way that was noticeable. And as I've already said, the Helldivers could kill the Reapers relatively easily, so I just don't see it being a factor. They're not going to be around the Reapers for 4 years straight to actually be indoctrinated. Now on to the Showdown. What exactly would happen if Super Earth came into the Mass Effect universe? How would everything go down? And the first thing that would happen, and the most obvious answer, is they would start fucking taking over planets immediately. Now, I wasn't lying to you when I said that I don't really think that Super Earth is racist or xenophobic in any way. I don't believe that if they showed up in the Mass Effect universe and came across other species that were all on board with the Super Earth shit and wanted to serve and work for Super Earth, that Super Earth would kill them all anyway. I don't believe that. However, in the Mass Effect universe, nobody's going to do that. A very big theme in the Mass Effect universe is that all of these different species, whether it be Turians or Krogans or Solarians, They're all very self-involved. They all believe that their species is better than all of the other species. There isn't a single one of them that's going to put all of that aside and be like, yeah, we're going to serve a bunch of humans and completely be accepting of their philosophies and ideology. Not happening. Super Earth might not be racist, but the Mass Effect universe is extremely racist. Maybe they might get some Alliance officers that sort of agree with them and side with them, but I don't really see that happening either, because then you'd be committing treason to the Alliance. And we really don't see anywhere in the Mass Effect series where any human does that. That's a pretty big deal. Traitors to your own race is kind of a rare thing. Now, I did see a lot of people in the last video saying that it would be interesting to see how the Helldivers interact with the Elusive Man, because they believe that the Elusive Man and Super Earth actually have very similar ideologies. I disagree with that. I actually don't think that they're that similar. The Elusive Man is all about humanity first, but he's also extremely self-serving and wants power for himself. This is one of the reasons why Miranda Lawson actually leaves him, because she starts to believe that maybe he doesn't have humanity's best interests at heart. By comparison, human superiority, like I said, isn't really that big of a factor for Super Earth. It's more about ideology. It doesn't matter if you're human or not. If you don't agree with managed democracy and capitalism and all their other beliefs, they're not going to accept you just because you're human. I don't really see these two getting along. In fact, if I was going to point to a faction that has the most in common with Super Earth, it would probably be the Turians. The Turians in the Mass Effect universe are absolutely Turian supremacists. They're basically Nazis. They believe that the military and the government comes before individual needs, and they are very, very fascist. Does that mean that the Turians and Super Earth are going to get along? Fuck no. You put two fascists who believe that their ideologies are paramount to anyone else's and everything else should die that aren't theirs, and then you put them against each other? What do you think is gonna happen? Did Stalin and Hitler just meet each other and become the best of pals? No. I do think that the Turians as a society will actually greatly respect Super Earth since they have so many similar philosophies, but when it really boils down to it, what they stand in and what they believe for are not the same thing. Managed democracy and capitalism are not really aspects of Turian society, so they are definitely going to war. There just is no doubt here. Every single race that Super Earth's going to come into contact with is going to go to war with them. So how is that war going to go? Well, I think for most battles, Mass Effect is going to do pretty well, because what people tend to forget is that the massive majority of Super Earth's army is not Helldivers, it's SCAF officers. And SCAF officers are specifically stated to not have access to super destroyers or any stratagems. That is a Helldiver privilege, which means that all the SCAF officers are just going down to the Earth with all their basic bitch weaponry. Now, many of their weapons are strong enough to fight against Mass Effect military personnel, like the Scorcher, which is a plasma gun that shoots exploding plasma, or the Incendiary Breaker, which is an automatic shotgun that shoots superheated shells that burn through armor and then light whatever you shoot on fire. Very similar to Mass Effect's incendiary rounds. But there really is just no denying here that the SCAF are going to be limited in a lot of ways. For instance, they are not going to have the personal force field generator, so they're not going to have access to any shielding whatsoever. They're not even going to have the Helldivers armor that is made out of the titanium alloy that the super destroyers are. They're just gonna have regular soldier bullshit. Every single military operative in all of Mass Effect has a personal shield. And against biotics, there's not even a fucking question. The biotics have things that the SCAF can't possibly go up against. Really, the only thing that Super Earth's gonna have in terms of the SCAF military is just insane numbers. Again, this was another thing that people talked about during the Star Wars video, where they were saying that Star Wars should have way more numbers than Super Earth. There is literally no way to determine this. We have no idea how many stormtroopers exist within the Empire. None. Nothing across the entire Star Wars universe, whether extended or canon, gives us a number of how many units they have. And that is the exact same for Helldivers. We don't know how many Helldivers there are. We don't know how many SCAF officers there are. We don't know how many planets Super Earth controls. We don't know shit. The only information we know is that in the last, 7 months, 9 months, however long the game's been out, 2 billion Helldivers have died, and over 100 billion enemies were killed by Helldivers. That's it. We don't even know how many SCAF officers have been killed, but we can assume it's considerably more than Helldivers, because there's way more of them than Helldivers. Again, remember, Helldivers are the elite unit. There's way less. So to say that any of these armies outnumber any of these other armies, it's ridiculous. We don't know. So are Helldivers going to be able to overcome the entire Mass Effect universe in numbers? We don't know. But what we could probably assume is that the Helldivers will overcome individual species pretty easily. There really is no evidence that Turians have literally countless worlds in their control. There aren't that many populated worlds in the Mass Effect universe. There's a decent amount, but it's not so great that it's fucking countless like it would be in the Star Wars universe or in the Helldivers universe. So I really don't see the SCAF running out of troops to throw at the Mass Effect universe, regardless of what armor they're throwing them at. However, I also don't see the SCAF actually winning any of those engagements, regardless of number, simply because they're not going to be able to get over the biotics. I mean, imagine our real world, right? You have a battle between two sets of knights. On one side, the knights have heavy plate armor, and on the other side, the knights are wearing loincloths. Who's winning? Rhetorical fucking question. We all know who's winning. That's basically what's going to happen here. So the winner of this battle will not be decided on the SCAF officers. It's going to be decided by the Helldivers. Because when the Helldivers get sent down, they are going to have access to all that technology that is going to be able to overcome the biotics and all of the Mass Effect characters. And when that happens, it's going to be a very different situation. Because 4 Helldivers will be able to take out, hundreds of fucking Mass Effect characters? Like, it's not even close. The biotics are going to give them some issues, like I said. But the Helldivers are capable of fighting against the Illuminates, who have a lot of the exact same powers. So it's not like it's something they've never seen before. But what Helldiver has never seen are troops that come down with a fucking communication link with a ship that's right above their heads, constantly launching weapons of mass destruction down upon them whenever they fucking call it. Imagine on one side of a war you have 1 million Mass Effect characters, right? And on the other side, you have, 100,000 Helldivers. And then all of a sudden, those 100,000 Helldivers all send out orbital lasers, or they all send out the fucking Patriot exosuits that come down, the mech suits. Well, now all of a sudden, that million doesn't really seem like all that much. Those 100,000 killed that million pretty goddamn easily. And Mass Effect can try to engage the Helldivers in space before they land on the planet, but again, the destroyers are just so much more powerful than their ships. The only real advantage I can see that they have over the Helldivers as far as a ground engagement goes is their tech abilities. In Mass Effect, certain units that are tech-based can actually control technology wirelessly. So much like the jammers and Helldivers that block your communications with your super destroyer so you can't call down stratagems, all of the tech-based people can do that in Mass Effect to the Helldivers, which means they kind of lose a lot of their fighting force. The problem on the Mass Effect side is that not everyone is a tech-based. It's a small percentage of the total number of people they have. Like, it's one particular class out of 6 or 8 different classes that exist. And they're really not going to be able to control everything. Like, they're not going to be able to control their guns and shut their guns down in their hand or anything. The guns don't have fucking technology like that built into it. It's just a big-ass gun. It's not really that advanced. I'm not even 100% sure you're going to be able to affect things like the energy shields that go over their bodies, because it really just resembles a big-ass car battery that you put on your back. There isn't any evidence that there's a computer in there to even hack against. The only thing that they are for sure going to be able to do is block the communications between the Super Destroyer and the Helldivers. So that's going to help them. I just don't think it's going to be enough. You're definitely going to be closing the gap between the two a little bit, but unless you have one tech-based person for every single Helldiver that comes down to the planet, it's not really going to do all that much. And the moment the Helldiver kills that tech person, which isn't going to be difficult because it's very obvious where the hacking is coming from, and tech characters in the Mass Effect universe aren't particularly hard to kill, like the more soldier-based characters, I don't really think it's going to be all that much of a problem. I mean, Helldivers have their communication fucked with all the time when they go down to planets, and they're capable of fighting hundreds and hundreds of automatons on their way to get their communications turned back on. So it's not like they're completely worthless without it anyway. Anyway, at the end of all this, I think it's pretty clear the Helldivers are going to succeed on the ground forces as well as in the air forces. So yeah, overall, I think the Helldivers are going to dominate on the floor and completely dominate in space battles. I don't think it's even fucking close. But the main reason why I think the Helldivers are really gonna dominate and Mass Effect basically has no chance whatsoever is because of something that I consider to be a plot hole. So in Mass Effect, there's those things called mass relays. Now, I already talked about them. You fly into a mass relay, it lowers your mass, and then you can shoot across the fucking galaxy at way faster than light. It's the only way that they can travel that fast. Helldivers don't actually need mass relays to do that, but Mass Effect ships do. Here's the plot hole that Mass Effect has. The mass relays were created by the Reapers and put into the Milky Way so that biological organisms would eventually find find them and then study them, and their technology would essentially follow along that same line to use the mass relays. This way, when the Reapers came in to wipe them all out, they would be able to deal with them because these species didn't develop technology on like their own path. So the Reapers would know exactly how their technology works and would more easily be able to dominate them. So knowing that that was the Reapers' plans when they built the mass relays in the first place, you have to ask, why didn't they build in a kill switch for the mass relays? I mean, think about it. They built these things. In Mass Effect 3, Shepard goes all around the Milky Way, getting all sorts of forces to join him in his fight against the Reapers, and then they all fly to Earth at the same time and take on the Reapers, and depending on what your decisions are in the game, they could win. But the whole time he's traveling around getting all these allies, he's using the mass relays to do it. It's just crazy to me that the Reapers didn't shut off the fucking mass relays, or at least put some kind of code into it to where only certain people can use it. Like, yeah, allow them to use it for 50,000 years or whatever. Allow them to build up the technology and follow in the path you need them to. But then once the Reapers show up to actually take over shit, turn them off. Why are you still giving them access to it? We already know the Reapers don't need the mass relays to travel like that. They actually have mass relays built in their own body. None of the lower species have them because they don't understand entirely how it works. It's too advanced for them. And this is the main reason why Helldivers is going to absolutely dominate, because Helldivers can travel across the whole galaxy without ever using a mass relay, something that no one in the Mass Effect universe can do other than the Reapers. So what reason do they have to not destroy all the mass relays to cut off everyone's traveling abilities? If Helldivers wanted to, they could keep one or two, study them to understand the technology, and then alter that technology to help them for the war and destroy basically every other one they come across. This would mean that every single planet would be cut off from every single other planet. They wouldn't be able to traverse the galaxy. They wouldn't be able to plan. They wouldn't be able to communicate with one another. They would all just be isolated to their solar systems, unable to leave. Because without the mass relays, their ships aren't capable of traveling fast enough to go from one solar system to another in a single lifetime. And then once Super Earth destroys all these mass relays and decides to keep a couple more, do you really think that they're not going to integrate that technology into their own shit? A mass relay has the ability to alter the mass of an object. They do this to speed up the shots of their guns without causing too much damage. Based on everything that you know about the Helldivers, are you really gonna try and sell me that the Helldivers aren't gonna get that technology and flip it to increase the mass of some of their shots to make even more powerful guns? Think about adding a mass relay to a super destroyer and then reversing it and putting that energy into a rail cannon. And now that rail cannon is shooting with hundreds, if not thousands of times more mass than it was before. Every single super destroyer could essentially be a planet-busting weapon. We've already established that Helldivers has more powerful weapons than Mass Effect and not limited by the recoil that Mass Effect is limited by. So if they're not limited by the recoil in the same way, why not just add the Mass Effect relay to it and make their shit a little bit stronger? You don't have to make it fly the speed of light or anything, or make a bullet 6 fucking tons, but you can add to it and make it more powerful. Maybe add a little mass relay to your jetpack and have you zoom all around the battlefield going at insane speeds. And remember, Super Earth is really good at doing this. Super Earth stole a bunch of technology from the Illuminates that they did not understand, and not only did they evolve their technology and adapt to it, they overcame it and made better technology than the Illuminates had. They are monstrously good at this. By comparison, the races in Mass Effect have access to the mass relays for tens of thousands of years in some case, and they still don't understand the technology. They are limited by their understanding. Super Earth isn't. They understand very quickly and they improve upon the design. So yeah, overall, I don't think Mass Effect stands a chance here. Super Earth's gonna come in, they're gonna completely dominate on the ground and in space. They're going to slaughter everything. The Reaper threat's not gonna be an issue. The Indoctrination's not gonna be an issue. And they're gonna be completely free to travel around the entire galaxy in a way that nobody in Mass Effect is, which is gonna give them a massive tactical advantage. This shit is over. Helldivers fucking dominate this universe. But that's gonna be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And if you are a fan of Helldivers 2, I have been streaming it quite a lot recently. I'm probably gonna end up doing this 2 or 3 times a week. You can watch me fail at playing Helldivers because I haven't played in many, many months. And I'm kind of re-getting into the game after all the big patches and kind of relearning a lot of things. It's fun. People are in chat. They're making fun of me. It's cool. It's cool. Stay tuned for that if that's something you're interested in. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?